Now broadcasting from his hidden bunker and fully stocked bar, it is the Saturday Report with Colt Sebastian Taylor.
Thank you and welcome once again to the Saturday Report with me, Colt Sebastian Taylor, adventurer, entrepreneur, and amateur turkey, and welcome to AWSM Radio, an independent digital-only radio station that plays today's best music, old school classics, along with a rotating cast of all-star DJs. AWSM Radio focuses on mainstream artists, independent artists, along with a variety of interesting talk and music shows throughout the day. All we do here is entertain, inspire, and inform. And my friends, I want to engage with you. I want you to be part of the show, so you can find me on the Twitter, on the Instagram, on the Rizzle, and on the Cameo. Yes, I do cameos, at Colt S. Taylor. And if you've just so happened you can't catch this week's show or previous week's show because you're out shopping for the holidays, you can subscribe to the podcast version of the show at anchor.fm/Colt S. Taylor. And of course, if you haven't already, you should definitely bookmark ColtSebastianTaylor.com. All right, my friends, let's get started with this week's Saturday Report. First up today, we go to the Great White North of Europe, Sweden, where Sweden has elected its first female prime minister, Magdalena Andersson. All the previous 33 prime ministers of Sweden have all been men, and she was voted in to be the prime minister on Wednesday, making her, like I said, the first female prime minister of Sweden. All of the other Nordic countries, Finland, Denmark, Norway, and Iceland, have previously elected female leaders. Sweden was the only one who has it until now. She was the deputy director of the Swedish tax agency, and she also holds a master's degree in economics from the Stockholm School of Economics, and served as Sweden's finance minister since 2014. She came to power with a coalition government of several different parties. Sweden is a multi-party country, parliamentary, constitutional monarchy. There is a Swedish king. She has not yet met the king, but once she does, she will be the prime minister of Sweden. So congratulations, Magdalena Andersson. Moving along, the first female Swedish prime minister has resigned. Yes. 7 hours after she became prime minister, being selected by the parliament, she abruptly resigned, which was a big surprise. It was a very busy day in Sweden on Wednesday. So, basically, to break this down, Magdalena Andersson here has 3 coalition partners to form government. She has her own party. She has kind of like a middle party, a moderate party, and then like a far left party. Okay, like they're called the left. They're former communists. Well, so she was elected as prime minister, and then on that day they needed to pass a budget to run the country. Well, the budget she proposed, her coalition proposed, failed. Because one of her partners, I believe a Green Party, withdrew because they didn't want the left to have certain special privileges in the government. So they did not vote for that budget. So then another budget came up from the right parties, who lean to the right in Sweden, and that budget passed. So basically, for a few hours, there was a situation where you had a left-leaning government who had to operate the country using a right-leaning budget. Well, that did not go over well with some people, and so her partners left her coalition, triggering her resignation, and pretty much starting things all over again to select a prime minister. She had not even met the Swedish king before she had to resign. Now, as you may imagine, things are a bit fluid over there, but more than likely, she will return as prime minister, and they'll try to get through the budget through again after doing some negotiations with their coalition partners. Now, if they cannot select a prime minister in 4 tries, there has to be elections within 3 months. Then there will be another election scheduled in September. So the government wants to avoid having an election, let's say, in March, and then turn right around and have another election in September. That probably would not bode well for anyone, be very expensive or not. So they're trying to work this out so there isn't any elections, 2 elections in 1 year. I just find it to be very interesting, the way that works there, that she became prime minister and then she had to resign. Now, Sweden, for you government nerds out there, operates a little bit differently than other parliamentary countries around the world. Now, like most people, when they think of Parliament, most people think of the British Parliament, okay, in the United Kingdom. Basically, if there's no confidence, Prime Minister gets kicked out, they have to have elections. Well, the way this works is not so much of no confidence, is that if no one else gets the majority, then the people in charge remain in charge. So if you want to oust a government, you need to have a group of people agree that it's time for them to go. They can't, if no one likes them, whatever. But if they can't organize and say, yes, we want to take over, then Sweden's government remains. It's very, very interesting. So, I don't know how closely I'll follow this. I just found it to be very interesting that in the morning on Wednesday, I read, oh, Sweden has its first prime minister. How very interesting. Congratulations. Then by the time dinner rolled around, the prime minister of Sweden has resigned. Huh. That went quickly. More than likely, like I said, she'll be back in power. But very, very unstable there. Fluid government situation in Sweden. More than likely, I don't see them storming the parliament, yelling fake news and whatnot. So I imagine they'll work things out there in ye old Sweden. Fun fact, though, I technically cannot be the Prime Minister of Sweden. I guess that's not a fact, though, but I could be technically the Speaker of the House if someone nominated me. Just saying, I'd be fantastic. I'd be pretty good. Yes, I wear a pith helmet while inside. Next up, we go from Sweden to New Zealand, where one of my fantastic Dungeons & Dragons partners lives. Yes, I play with someone who lives literally in a 12-hour time zone difference. I don't know how she does it, but hello, Vahela. But in New Zealand, they plan to reopen its borders in the next coming months, according to a government announcement, allowing for residents who have been stuck outside of the country to return in January and tourists to return in April. New Zealand has been pretty much sealed off from the world since the pandemic started. They told its citizens basically you got like 2 weeks to get back. If you're not back in 2 weeks, you ain't coming back. And so some people have been unable to return to New Zealand in several years, basically. They could, but they have to spend like 2 weeks in a quarantine hotel run by the military. So, like, if you were outside of New Zealand, you're New Zealander, and you wanted to come back, you had to spend 2 weeks in a hotel under military guard until it was clear you did not have COVID-19. So, very, very harsh restrictions. And they've kept their COVID pandemic down, like, really, really good. And for the first 18 months of the pandemic, they kept New Zealand pretty much virus-free. But the Delta variant has been hard to stamp out. It's been popping up all over the place. It is it's difficult to knock down. So they're trying to get everyone vaccinated, but they feel like they are getting to the point where it'd be relatively safe to start opening borders sometime next year. Fully vaccinated New Zealanders will be able to return from Australia without quarantine from January 16th. Other countries on February 13th. And then starting around late April, they'll open up the doors to other countries. Right now, if you're returning from some countries, it's still 2 weeks. Other places, 7 days, but they're pretty strict about how they are handling the borders there. And like I said, they've cut it down really. They have not had a lot of deaths there. They're doing a pretty good job there. I mean, I don't think their measures would work well here because people are a wee bit selfish, but it's moving along. It's moving along. Currently, about 69% of New Zealanders are fully vaccinated, including 84% of those 12 and over. And while here in the United States we have had 800,000 plus deaths, only 40 people have died from the coronavirus in New Zealand since the pandemic began. Now, obviously, New Zealand has a much smaller population than the United States, but those percentages are also much better. They're doing a very good job down there. So, I don't know if I'll be visiting New Zealand anytime soon, but if I do, I will definitely be able to do it after April. Maybe I'll go down and play Dungeons and Dragons down there with my pal. Seems like a very expensive trip to make to play a board game. But if I hit the lottery, worth it. We now go on to tech news. T-Mobile, one of the largest carriers here in the United States, had to pay a $20 million, well, it's a $20 million settlement, not a fine, but a settlement, after a June 2020 911 outage. For about 12 hours in June 2020, there was a 911 outage on the T-Mobile system on June 15th. It led to congestions across the 4G, 3G, and 2G networks. Over 23,000 911 calls were recorded without location information, and more than 20,000 calls were recorded without callback information. So, not a very helpful situation. That's kind of like their guess of what happened there. They were in the FCC's investigation. They found the flaw was due to a failure of a leased fiber link on the network, a routing flaw at one location, and 2 flaws on third-party software. Now, probably say to yourself, well, Colt, I mean, that seems pretty steep. Well, a lot of people, phones, that's their only connection. So, a 911 outage of that length is a pretty big deal. And it's also not the first time this has happened. In 2014, T-Mobile paid a $17.5 million settlement to FCC into two 911 service outages that occurred in August 2014. So, not the first time they've had 911 outages of lengthy ones. So, they are... The settlement is sort of to encourage them to try a wee bit harder to stop that from happening. They're obviously expanding rapidly. New technologies are coming online. But 911 is a vital link to many people around the United States. And they need to get their act together or they're going to get more and more fines and whatnot. So hopefully, I use T-Mobile myself. They are not a sponsor of the show. Yet. T-Mobile. Yet. But I certainly do enjoy their service, so hopefully they get their act together, because I am a long-time customer and would love a sponsorship from T-Mobile. Just saying. I would think it should be T-Mobile presents the Saturday Report with Colt Sebastian Taylor at a, $1 million, several million, $10 million sponsorship. I don't know. I think it'd be a great idea, T-Mobile. Just saying. I think it'll go a long ways for people to forget this 911 thing if suddenly your favorite redhead is a sponsored show. Well, anyways, that is in tech news this week. A little bit of a fine for T-Mobile for not having their 911 situation sorted out. Moving along to some sad news. Bart the Bear. Bart the Bear 2, to his exact name. A famed grizzly bear who appeared in countless movies and TV series such as Game of Thrones, We Bought a Zoo, Dr. Dolittle, An Unfinished Life, Into the West, Evan Almighty, Have You Heard About the Morgans, Without a Paddle, Zookeeper, Pete's Dragon, and We Bought a Zoo. I think I said that Into the Wild, The Grizzly Maze, as well as many other TV commercials, passed away this week, unfortunately. He apparently died silently and naturally along the banks of the Daniel Creek in Utah earlier this week on a reservation, a conservatory and whatnot of bears and whatnot, according to the foundation, surrounded by many of those who loved him, according to the obituary. Survived by his sister Honey Bump as well. Bart the bear was orphaned in Alaska in 2000 with his sister after his mother was killed by a hunter. Then was brought to Utah, where he lived out his life as a 1,400-pound bear and became the ambassador of the Vital Ground Foundation. The Vital Ground Foundation works predominantly with the Rocky Mountains to conserve land for grizzly bears and other wildlife. But he was a trained bear, raised by people, so he was comfortable around them, had a trainer, and was in a lot of movies and commercials. And I have seen many of the movies that Bart the bear was in. Chances are you probably have seen him too. He was in a lot of different things. But much like animals, unfortunately, all animals, he did pass away. But from what I understand, it was a very peaceful going and surrounded by all the folks that took care of him. So I'm sure they'll bury him somewhere and whatnot. But shout outs to the great Bart the Bear 2, actor, bear, grizzly bear. So have a bear claw for Bart the Bear this weekend. And my friends, as you mourn the passing of Bart the Bear, you might find yourself a little down. You might need to have yourself a little pick-me-up. You might want to get into some groove. Well, my friends, look no further, because here on AWSM Radio, we have our in-house DJ, DC, mixing it up every Friday night at 9 p.m., Sundays at 10 p.m. with DC, live in effect. You do not want to miss out while he smashes it on the ones and twos, kicking the beats from South Florida, week in and week out. You don't want to miss him. He is a fantastic DJ, my personal pal, and he's here on AWSM Radio. So, listen to DC live in effect, Fridays at 9, Sundays at 10, right here on AWSM Radio. Moving on to Africa, the country of Malawi, which I will give you 5 seconds to figure out where that is, because I know most of you don't. Yes, that Malawi has asked former boxer Mike Tyson to be its cannabis ambassador. Yes, that's right. Agricultural Minister Lobin Low sent a letter to Mike Tyson inviting him to take up the role, said that legislation in Malawi had created new opportunities. He is currently has invested in a cannabis farm in the U.S., and the entrepreneur is interested in perhaps taking on the role. This deal is being facilitated with the United States Cannabis Association, according to several sources. The head of its Malawi branch, that's right, there is many different branches of the Cannabis Association, told the BBC that the boxer had accepted the invitation and plans were underway for him to be visiting the country. Quote, Tyson will be working with us. Malawi legalized the growing and processing of cannabis for medical use last year, but it not has legalized it for personal use. They also growing cannabis for medical uses as well as for the hemp industry. The government hopes that Mr. Tyson will, quote, rope in some investors and even potential buyers, according to the ministry spokesman of it. Locally grown variety of cannabis, called Malawi Gold, is apparently renowned by recreational users across the world. I myself cannot attest to that. I do not do any smoking of anything whatsoever, and but I will take their word for it. Mike Tyson said that cannabis has helped improve his mental health and turned his life around, although there are apparently some studies out there that suggest that smoking potent cannabis can increase your risk of serious mental illness. So, much like alcohol or any vice out there, moderation is the key. You know, having a glass of Fireball whiskey once a week is going to be much better for you than having 8 a night, every night. Oh, so good. But, yeah. This is not widely accepted in Malawi. There are some criticisms about it, basically for his sexual assault conviction in 1992. According to Kondwali Muthadi in a statement, the CPA is failing to comprehend why Malawi would want to have a convicted rapist as its brand ambassador, more especially at this time when efforts to curb violence against women are part of the government agenda, according to the group's acting director, which is that person. So, we'll see. I mean, he definitely does bring in a lot of branding. We'll see how that turns out for Mike Tyson in Malawi. If it comes up again, I will definitely give you an update. We stay in Africa for some more serious news, and I certainly don't like bringing this to you and be a Debbie Downer, but it's stuff that you need to know. There is a new variant of COVID that is emerging from Africa, known as new B.1.1.529. I don't know what those numbers and letters mean, but it is a growing concern for the World Health Organization. So much so that UK, the European Union, and Israel are suspending all air travel to several African countries because of this new variant. They want to sort of just play it safe for the time being, but they are stopping flights from South Africa. Let's see here. South Africa, Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia, Zimbabwe. The Japanese government plans on doing that as well. Basically, several southern African countries are being banned. Flights are being banned from those until they have more information about it. Now, this variant is of a bit of concern because there are many mutations. There are many mutations that are associated with it. They're saying there are 32 different new mutations, all to its spike protein, which I don't know what that means, but they're pretty concerned about that. And unlike perhaps your neighbors or, let's say, relatives on Facebook groups who dissuade experts and just rely on Facebook memes, scientists are concerned about it. I will be concerned about it also. Now, they don't have a super amount of data on this brand new variant. They believe that the vaccine will still be effective against it, but they are looking at it very, very carefully because they feel like that this could be even more contagious than the Delta variant, and perhaps more virulent as well. That means hit you a whole lot harder. As of this week, 77 tests have registered this particular variant in South Africa, 4 from Botswana, and 1 in Hong Kong as well. And there are reports of 1 also in Israel. So, yeah, that's a bit of a problem, obviously. Now, this has also affected. Let me back up just a little bit. This is a little worrying for many, many people. Scientists are worried about it, and you're probably saying, well, scientists. What do they know? Well, after this sort of popped up Friday morning, the Dow Jones Industrial dropped 800, 900 points, pretty steeply, like over 2%. Concerned that this variant will sort of lose the ground we gained in fighting the pandemic. So, not only are scientists worried about it, but obviously the stock market is worried about it as well. Now, it's kind of funny. So the stock market is a very interesting predictive market. They're not always right, but there's a lot of smart people out there like to play the, protect their money, so they'll do what they gotta do. But yeah, this is a concern. If you are not vaccinated yet, my friends, get vaccinated. I don't know how many more times I have to tell people to do this, but you really, really should be vaccinated, because you will. If you get vaccinated, could you still get sick? Yeah. If you get vaccinated, could you get sick and pass the virus on to the people? Sure, certainly possible. But if you get the vaccine, the chances of you being on a respirator drops dramatically. Dramatically. Unless you're very old, have a lot of pre-existing health conditions, you're still in danger, but if you're a regular person, it helps immensely. Now, if you know one person who said they know 10,000 people have died because the vaccine had heart attacks the day after, that person is lying, and that person is a stupid public health hazard, a room temperature IQ slack-jawed yokel. Okay, there's one side effect to the vaccine. I can guarantee you. I have no patience for people who are word vomiting out ridiculous Facebook facts or quoting doctors whose only medical degree are facelifts. They are not experts in this area, okay? Not experts in the area. I read a story. I won't go into too much, but it was called A Story in Two Acts. One story, doctors gather in Florida to discuss alternatives to COVID-19 treatments and vaccines, an anti-vaccine conference. 3 days later, 8 doctors come down with COVID-19 at anti-vaccine conference. I mean, come on, folks. Come on. Get in now while things are in control. If this thing is as bad as people fear, eventually it's going to be poking through your front door. So, be a responsible part of the community. Okay? Get yourself vaccinated. All right? I've had 3 shots. 2 to start. Got my booster this week. I don't have any extra arms. I'm not being tracked by the government. I am not inhuman now. My DNA is not changing. Okay? You do not want to end up on Reddit's Herman Cain Awards. What's the Herman Cain Awards? Well, usually it's 4 pictures. The first 3 are people deriding the vaccine, saying they don't wear the mask, that people are sheeple, that this is a big New World Order conspiracy. And then the 4th picture is someone announcing their death and posting a GoFundMe fundraiser. So, do not end up there, okay? Don't end up there. I want you to be a long-time listener of the show. Anyway, sorry to get off of that diatribe there. Anyways, in Africa, there is a new variant. It is a bit of a concern. European countries are stopping flights from South Africa countries because of it. Stock markets are spooked on Friday. Something to watch. I will keep track of it for you if it starts to spiral a bit into a situation. Now, if there's one thing that there is no vaccine for, it's my pal Rox. She is infectious. With her show, The Rock Sessions, it has to be you need regular doses of The Rock Sessions, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's our drive time show here, so you are inoculated to the boredom of driving home from work. You listen to some other radio station, no thank you. Listen to her show where she has the hottest music on the charts and some other surprises in between. She will make it rock style, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. right here on AWSM Radio. Moving along. Hey friends, do you have a foot fetish? Ooh, kinky. Does your foot fetish involve football players? Ooh, kinkier. Does your football fetish involve quarterbacks for the Green Bay Packers? Ooh, that is specific. You may want to get that. You might want to see a therapist. You might have some underlying issues. But until then, folks, I, Colt Sebastian Taylor, am granting you the greatest thrill of all time, because there are a flood of pictures of Aaron Rodgers' foot on the internet. satisfying all of your kinky desires. Why, you ask? Well, it's kind of a COVID-19 reason. As you may know, Aaron Rodgers, after claiming to be vaccinated, claiming that he considers himself vaccinated, but no one ever really asked what that meant, got the COVID-19 a couple of weeks ago, being derided by many people as lying to everyone about him having been vaccinated, which he hasn't. He just did things that he considered himself to be vaccinated by, I guess, having COVID-19 protocols, taking supplements that was just as good as being vaccinated. Turns out, it's not. Not at all. Pro tip, do not take medical advice from Joe Rogan. Very good branding person, makes lots of money. Not a doctor. So anyways, he recovered from COVID-19. He no longer is infected with it, but he is having some foot trouble. And on a show called the, what was it called? The Pat McAfee Show, he said that he had no lingering effects other than COVID toe, and then the Wall Street Journal ran with that this is a result of him being careless, that he has COVID toe, but actually, he was just joking. Just joking. And he ripped the Wall Street Journal for reporting that, even though that's what he said. I don't know about you, when I think of classic comedy, I don't think of Aaron Rodgers, so I don't know why he's upset that people thought he was joking, because he made the statement. But anyways, why am I talking about feet pictures? Well, to prove he doesn't have COVID toe, which is a real condition that real people who've had COVID have, he's been showing his foot off to everyone in interviews, saying it's just a broken toe, a fractured toe. So COVID toe looks very different than a fractured toe, so he's been showing people his bare feet to prove that it was just a joke, not COVID toe, just a fractured toe. So, for those who love the feet, boy howdy, turn your printers on high resolution, print yourself up some Aaron Rodgers feet pics, and when you are enjoying it in a candlelit room where you do all of your kinky, fetishy stuff, which is fine, just think of your old pal Colt Sebastian Taylor and say, thanks, Colt. Thanks. Now, for all other non-kink related sports things you need to listen to, my friends, Married to the Game. Yes, that's the transition here. Married to the Game, AWSM Radio's sports show here. It airs every Wednesday at 9 p.m. featuring Brian, Joe, and Matt Day bringing their non-foot insights, analytics, and expertise to the table, all things games. The only foot-related things you'll hear about on that show is football. And what kind of sports show would be without a little trash talking in between? It's a very fun show. So tune in, catch up on a week of all things sports, and of course, follow these fantastic fellers on the Instagram. Joe at Turn Up the Jets, Nick at the Mac Daddy Ryan Show, Brian at bolstered_up_sports, and then finally the show itself at MTTG Radio, Married to the Game, MTTG Radio on Instagram. Listen to Married to the Game, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. right here on AWSM Radio. Next up, folks, we move to UFOs. That's right, unidentified flying objects, alien spacecraft, interdimensional travelers, etc., etc. Well, long not being taken too seriously by the government, allegedly, the Department of Defense has formed a new group to investigate flying objects, after officials said earlier this year that they are unable to identify more than 100 incidents of unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs. So they don't really use UFOs, they use UAPs. So the newly launched, and this is quite the branding, Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group, or AWSM, will work with other federal departments and agencies to detect, identify, and attribute objects of interest, and mitigate any associated threats with the safety of flight and national security, according to this week. So, Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks expressed concern that the UAP report released in June identified 143 things that they just don't know what it was. They don't know what it is. Now, they are, I would say, less concerned about it being aliens and more concerned that it being breakthrough technology. So things that other countries are using that they're not aware of yet and are testing it out, and so they need to know what those things are. So basically, this group will expand significantly beyond the purview of the Secretary of Navy, which has usually historically been the person who's been sort of in charge of this sort of things. Requires much broader support from other federal agencies. The Department of Defense should receive reports of anything unusual within 2 weeks of the occurrence. So some of these things that they are unsure of is that they remain stationary in winds aloft, so they're just sort of holding still in the sky. They move against the wind, move at incredible speed, have no sort of known identification of how it's moving, no propulsion, and maneuvers are very abrupt. That they don't know, how it's moving or how it's moving so quickly. And in some cases, quote the DoD's report, a small number of cases, military aircraft systems processed radio frequency energy associated with UAP sightings. So they're picking up some radio waves from these things as well. So glad to see they're taking it seriously. I mean, is it aliens? Maybe. Is it unknown technology from other countries? Probably. So if this pops up again, I'll give you a full report. But something tells me they'll probably keep this wee bit hush-hush. Just a wee bit. In movie news, there is a Batgirl movie coming, and J.K. Simmons will be reprising his role as Jim Gordon in that movie. J.K. Simmons was Jim Gordon in the last Justice League movie. Very limited role in there, but he did pop up as Commissioner Gordon. But he'll have a more significant role in the Batgirl movie. For those who aren't comic nerds, Batgirl is really Barbara Gordon, Jim Gordon's daughter in the comic world and whatnot. Now, I'm not quite sure how Jim Gordon isn't able to figure that out, but whatever. But in this movie, Leslie Grace from The Heights will play Batgirl. Brendan Fraser will be the villain, which is great. I love Brendan Fraser. He's been kind of out of the limelight for quite a while, but he's making a comeback. It'll be directed by Adil El Arabi and Bali Fala from a script from the Birds of Prey screenwriter Christina Hodson. And it's going to be start shooting soon in Glasgow. So, good to see him. I think J.K. Simmons is a great Commissioner Gordon. Good to see him get more airtime. The last Commissioner Gordon was going to be played by Gary Oldman in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight, and the new upcoming Batman movie, which will take place when Batman first starts, sort of like his early career. The great Jeffrey Wright will be playing Commissioner Gordon in that Batman movie, which I do want to see. This will be the first on-screen live-action movie that have a father-daughter relationship between Jim Gordon and Barbara Gordon. In the Batman movies with previous series, it was not really talked about that she wasn't the daughter of Jim Gordon, but this time be the first time. So looking forward to seeing it. And that's just about all the time we have here today for the Saturday Report with me, Colt Sebastian Taylor. Thank you for joining me here today. Remember, you can find me on the Twitter, Instagram, Rizzle, and the Cameo of Colt S. Taylor. Subscribe to the podcast version of this show that is posted usually on Sundays at anchor.fm/Colt S. Taylor. And of course, bookmark ColtSebastianTaylor.com for all your Colt Sebastian Taylor needs. Hit me up if you think there's a news story that I missed. But until next time, my friends, I am, of course, your friend, the one, the only, Colt Sebastian Taylor, and I'll see you later.